And I've had people brag that they're making 30 and 40% on homes, but I think they're also not doing what I'd call proper accounting. It's not a flex. In my world, it's not a flex to brag about taking advantage of your client.
Hello guys, I'm Dmitry Bonder, and this is my first build show, podcast designed for first-time builders and everybody who wants to build their first house. And my guest today is Bruce Raney of Cleo Builders. And Bruce spent more than 30 years in this industry. Today he builds custom homes in Austin at $2 million and above. So Bruce, welcome to the show. Thank you for your time. Let me jump straight deep into the most interesting topic. Why does builder actually make on a 2 million home? Many builders even don't know the numbers. They don't feel how much they can make. So can you walk me through the honest margin math homeowners never see usually and never discuss?
Sure. And that's that may not be the simple question that you think it is, because the way contractors do their math and do their accounting, the vocabulary is a little different. So profit means one thing to me, and it means another thing to another contractor. What I mean by that, is it net profit? Is it gross profit? And what other bills need to get paid in that process? So I will say this, that I think in general terms, if you're somewhere between, let's say, 15 and 25% on the gross side, you're probably in the right spot. You start going under 15, you're probably getting too cheap. I think if you go over 25, and this is probably more for the people who are hiring contractors, I don't know that you need to pay more than that to get a project done, unless it's really uniquely challenging or specific, and there's a small pool of contractors that you trust. We generally are in 22% range ourselves, but people need to understand that that's a gross number. That's not our net, meaning when all bills are paid, we don't walk away with 22% of the project. We cover a lot of our internal overhead with that. And so the way that gets represented on kind of a bid form, or the contractor shows that to somebody who's building a house for the first time, there should be enough clarity that when they read it, it makes sense. And if it doesn't, they should be able to go to the contractor and say, can you explain to me what's happening? Because at the end of the day, your net, all bills paid, you're probably bringing home half that number. Right. And so are we talking about a cost plus contract for custom homes? We are not talking about the spec house, right? Well, it can be either way. So on cost plus, usually you come to some level of agreement. No matter what it costs, I'm going to take all of the bills and I'm going to add a certain amount to it. But that can be done different ways as well. It can be just one big number. It can say, hey, I'm going to add 25%. I'm going to add 20%. Or you can say it's cost plus all my overhead, which is another cost. And then I add another percentage on that, whatever that is. That's negotiable. We've had clients that push back, and for whatever reason, and it's like, okay, well, here's how we manage our projects. This is the reason we charge what we charge, because I think we do things differently. We're super engaged in our projects. We take a small amount, so I'm there almost every day. Our ownership's on our job sites every day, so we don't just send an army of guys out. Like, we lay eyes, we have the conversations, we stay involved. So we spend more time and put more resources into things. So, but we talk about that number. We talk about that overhead number and any other type of direct job costs that may be involved, just to make sure that there's clarity. Like, I do think people think contractors make a lot more money than they do. And maybe there are some contractors that make a lot more money than we do. And maybe we're doing it wrong.
Especially in current market conditions.
Well, it's just what's a reasonable amount to charge for something. And I think some people have the attitude of, I'm going to charge whatever I can get. And then we kind of balance it out. We know how much it costs for us to build. We know the resources we're going to put on a project. So we know that number, and we don't have to be greedy on our net profit, because once we pick a number, we're happy with that. Our client's happy with that. There's no need to fight and claw and scratch for any more money. So I think full transparency really helps out a lot.
I spoke with one custom builder, and he explained a very interesting situation when you want to protect client's budget, and you trying to maybe choose less expensive solution or less expensive material that without sacrificing the quality. And clients understand this, but on the other hand, you decreasing the cost. So it's like a slightly opposite direction between you and clients, when you want to help decrease the budget, but on the other hand, you will not get as much as you may want if you just inflate the budget. So how do you recommend to deal with this type of situation?
Sure. Yeah, it's not as complicated as it sounds. I mean, again, I've never had a project where we decreased the budget so much that it mattered. I mean, it might be a few $1,000s off of $150,000, right? At the end of the day, happy client is a lot more valuable to me than a few more $1,000, because they're my best marketing tool, right? I would say, but for us, we have all those discussions in the design process. So we're a design builder. We're going to design the house and build the house. We manage the entire process. So we have those conversations up front. And even if the clients, because most clients push their budget. If they say, Bruce, I want to build a $3 million house with everything they want, guess what? We're designing to 3.2, and we're already having to do what we call value engineer to try and get it down to that budget. So that happens a lot, but we do that in the design process. That's very rarely something that comes up in the construction process. What's more common when we're in construction is the client walks into a space and says, I thought this would be something different. I didn't know that we were going to see that. I don't like that. I want to change that. Those things always cost more money. But like to us, I don't see it as a disadvantage. It's just never happened where we took something out that was so valuable that we were worried about losing a little piece of profit on it.
But do you have any discussion, like if I save you money, you will pay whatever premium?
Well, so there is a concept where it's called shared savings. It's not as common in residential as it is in the commercial world. But basically what it says, hey, I want to build a house to X dollar amount. We design it and we get there. Because in the world of cost plus, it does protect the contractor a little bit, because prices fluctuate, and lately they fluctuate almost daily. So it's really hard for me to say, I guarantee you I can build this for $2 million, because lumber can go up in a minute, right? Yeah. So sometimes it's called cost savings. If I save you $100, you give me a percentage of that. I get $30, you get $70, it's 50-50. However you want to split that up. You can do that. It is a common delivery method. For us, it just hasn't been, I would say, worth the trouble. Okay. And I don't need to be incentivized to try and do the right thing for my client. I'm going to do that regardless. And if the right thing in that moment is to save them $20,000 on a different type of flooring, let's save them $20,000. I think it might be a little short-sighted to be thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm losing $2,000 because I couldn't charge them $20,000 more for the floor. What am I going to do? I think that's the wrong way to look at, because we're in the service industry, right? I think that's
at the end of the day, yes.
Yeah, I think it's much more of a transactional thought process versus the service process, and I don't know that attitude is going to win you a lot of extra clients.
You told me that to do the same amount of work on a 1 million house as on 2 million house, it's like pretty the same amount of work. But make half of the money. Can you break that down? Like, why do you feel that it's the same amount?
The difference between a $1 million and a $2 million house, believe it or not, sometimes they can be the same square footage. It's just finishes and the way it's designed that makes it literally double the value. But let's say it's twice the square footage. The same subtrade, we still pour the slab in one pour. We still frame the house all at once. All of the things that would happen on the $1 million house happen on the $2 million house. They might take a little bit more time. Probably not. Usually the subs just give you another guy or two, whatever it takes to fit that schedule. So from an overhead standpoint, from my side, my cost really doesn't change. I'm going to have a superintendent on site, and I'm going to be there every day however many days that needs to be, right? And so that doesn't change for me. But the profit is usually a percentage of the project. So if it's $1 million and it's 10%, then I make 100,000. If it's 2 million, I make 200,000, so on and so forth. And I think that the people that are building those bigger houses, they understand that. They want their contractors to make profit, because if they're not making profit, they're probably going to focus on a job somewhere else that is making them profit. And so, but again, it's whatever ends up getting negotiated out on how it is. So for me, it won't take more. Now, if I went from $1 million house to a $5 or $10 million house, that would change my resources that I deploy on that project. But going from 1 to 2 and even 2 to 3 really doesn't change how we manage that.
Yeah, makes sense. What does actually cost to build a house? And we are in Austin, so we cannot say about LA, for example, or North Carolina, but let's stick to the Austin. What does it actually cost to build a custom home in Austin right now, and why it's nearly impossible? We discussed this, like, to build under, let's say, 500,000.
Well, yeah, and custom is the trick word in that question.
Even spec, you.
I know guys that tell me they're building houses for about $200 a foot. I've had people say they're doing it for less. I can tell you, we can't build houses that cheap. I would say for what we would do, if we were to get under $300 a square foot, that would be a challenge for us. And that's just because we've got a group of trades and subs that, we're not trying to find the cheapest guys. We want good guys that do good work and warranty their work, because warranties are super important in this business. So there's probably a world where you could get well below 300. For what we do, I don't think we could do much under 300. And I don't know that house would be something we'd be proud of building. Part of the other reason we like building bigger houses is when we're finished with them, we've built a really cool house, right? It looks great, client's happy. And there's usually some sort of element that was unique, and we got to be a part of that. When you start building the less expensive houses, it's all builder grade, everything. And there's really nothing exciting about that. We don't build as much for the money as we do for kind of the overall experience. We've turned down houses that we just weren't interested in building, and it's so I would tell you, and of course I feel like I'm dancing all over the place on this question, but 300 in my world is probably about as cheap as it could go. I would say most of our houses are north of 500, at least north of 450 a foot, and they can literally go to $1,000, $1,200 a square foot. So when you start thinking about those numbers, how small of a house would you build at $300 a square foot if you were that cheap? I mean, once you get to $1,500, you're out of budget. And so, or 1,500 square feet, you're out of budget. So it's just hard for people to wrap their head around. I'm building a really, really small house and I'm going to pay $500,000 for it, when 10 years ago, that same house probably cost $200,000.
But let's break it down for first-time builders and everyone who have no good idea, like how the in general, on a like from bird's view, how the budget looks like? Let's say we have a 1 million. I came as a client and I want to have 1 million. So slab will be pretty the same always. Let's say 10% of the budget, right? Then frame. Okay, land. We should start from land. Let's say land 20% from the budget, maybe 10% on slab.
So it depends. In the world of custom, we don't have anything generally to do with the land purchase.
Yes.
So any number I give you today excludes the land purchase.
Okay.
So if
Let's
I
make
build
it
$1 million
simple.
house, that's $1 million in construction.
Yes.
They might have spent $1 million on the lot, but yeah, it would be $1 million in construction.
Let's break it down to like small pieces to get better idea how the budget looks like.
Yeah, I mean, from the percentages,
Yeah.
it's scary. I don't know that I have that level of detail where I can just say, it's 10% for concrete or 15% for framing or whatever. Because of the houses we build, those numbers can be all over the place. For example, I mean, if I'm framing what I call kind of a standard house with 10-foot ceilings,
Yeah. 2,500 square
regular
foot, yeah.
size, well, we probably wouldn't build much that small, but if there's nothing crazy, not a bunch of cantilevered patios and things like that, that framing and that slab is going to look so much different than a house that's on the side of a hill where I've dug it into the hill. We've got concrete 14-foot tall retaining walls, and we've got structural steel, and we've got cantilevered swimming pool hanging off the side.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for me to break that down. What I would tell any new builder, though, is especially if it's your first project, you've got to have a complete design. There's no doubt about that. It's almost a soapbox for me where somebody says, "Oh, I bought a set of plans for $300, or I found some guy in Pakistan to do this for a few $100." You're not getting a well-designed set of plans. You're just getting pictures drawn on a piece of paper. And so the design is super, super important to all of that. But you've got to be able to give that to subs who can give you a real number, a number that they'll guarantee. But there's got to be enough detail for them to do that, right? So it's not just, hey, I'll do this slab for $20 a square foot. It's this slab is $30 a square foot because I have some 7-foot deep beams on this side because there's a grade change. And
if it's in Houston, like clay and all
Houston's probably an easier place to pour a slab. Now, I don't know their structural requirements on width. Most slabs are going to look very similar. They're going to have some grade beams. There's certain width, there's certain depth. Most areas, they don't fluctuate a ton. Clay does, make you want to beef it up a little bit, just to be able to handle the movement, and the movement's what breaks your slabs, right? But they all pretty much look the same. But tying steel, cutting steel, getting it in place, digging, forming it, it all just takes time. If the shape is a standard regular, and some of the smaller houses, the shapes are going to be pretty, I don't want to make it sound simple, but they're going to be much more simple than if you're doing a 5,500 square foot, monster house that's got all kinds of spaces.
But let me rephrase this question slightly. So what part of the construction drive cost like really high? What, like, of course it's
finishes,
yeah. And maybe if you're building on slope.
Well, if you have a difficult site, that can definitely drive. I mean, a lot of our sites are not flat. So we build in areas in the hill country where a lot of times we're doing exactly what I described earlier. We're pushing a house into the side of a hill somewhere so they have a great view out over this huge valley, right? And these are incredible houses. They're architecturally amazing. The views are great. But yeah, you still have to figure out, how am I going to structurally hold this thing up?
Retaining walls.
Yeah, a lot of concrete, a lot of walls, and just a lot of thought. And again, there's an engineer that's spent a lot of time going into that. So that complexity absolutely will drive things. Finishes, I think people maybe underestimate that, and this is where we as a design builder have to communicate really well with our clients. We've had a lot of conversations with them in the design process to find out what's important. And so in that moment, it's like, well, is the shape of this space as important as how you feel in this room? And how you feel in this room is going to depend on the flooring, the paint, the wall finishes, the lighting, every element in this room is going to matter. And so do you want to spend extra money doing this extra framing element or thing versus actually spend the money in the space? Some people have the attitude of, my countertops need to hold the stuff I set on them. I don't care what my cabinets look like. Well, you're going to live with these. This is your forever home. You're going to live with this for a long time. Think about how you're going to interact with that every day. What do you really want? And so we've had those conversations. We've learned what they want, and that helps us when we start seeing something maybe in the building process that says, I heard him make this comment 4 or 5 times. I know it's important. And so here's what we suggest. Let's stop. Let's rethink this. We engage the designers and we get things done. So, but finishes really matter. If you're going from, a really nice wood floor to, let's say, a vinyl plank, that's a big quality difference. It's also a huge, cost difference. I can put tile in your house for a few dollars a square foot, and I can spend $100 a square foot. Those things matter, but you shower every day in your shower. What experience, do you care? If you don't, well, don't spend your money there. Think about the rooms that you do. Do you spend your time in your kitchen? Do you want that to be, but those all get fleshed out in the design process, and you decide where to put the money. I'm sure you've heard in the real estate world, people say, where do you spend money? Master bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, right? And those, for most people, that's where they spend the bulk of their time.
I feel after tens of conversation with the builders, like it's really hard now to make money in spec because market is pretty tough. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how familiar with other parts of United States. I think you maybe.
I would imagine if we're struggling in Austin, the people are struggling in most places. But that's the issue is the cost to build, right? Yeah. So just go look on the MLS. If I'm building a spec house and let's say I can get under $300, but maybe I'm at $250 or $300 a square foot. Oh, well, I'll have to buy the land because that's my construction cost. That's not buying. I mean, you might be in that thing for $300 a foot.
But do you feel it's the root of the problem for spec house builders, the very high interest rates or inflation of labor and materials? Like, what is the main issue?
I think the cost of construction is what's driving it. I mean, the houses can only sell for so much. We have spec investors who pay cash, so interest carry on it isn't the killer on those. And we've got literally investors who can flow these deals, but you still could be in $300 a foot. And the real question is how long do you have to wait? And so a lot of the deals we do is pretty simple. We'll design it, we'll build it, you finance it, however you want. You do debt at the bank, you can do cash, and then we just agree to split some profit. If we make profit, we agree on a percentage of split. You make some money, we make some money, and we move on. Again, I wouldn't recommend anybody doing spec houses in the 500 to $1 million range. That's a very risky place to do it. If you're doing that, you should be thinking volume. You should make sure you've got an investor who's got good money to do that. But if you're doing onesies, twosies, you're gonna go broke. Even if you make money, you just don't make enough money on those that it's worth it unless you're building 6 or 10 at a time.
This is a really interesting point. We had a previous episode with a spec home builder from Austin as well, and there is a very interesting case. You cannot get construction loan as a first-time builder if you never built before. But on the other hand, like you cannot become a custom builder because you don't have a previous experience. Nobody will sign contract with you. So what this builder did, he actually built his first spec house with cash because he wanted to speed up the process. He wanted to like jump into the niche, and for him it was a success. But I totally agree with you. Like it's very risky. So what would you advise for someone who's new and he want to start building? He cannot be a custom builder. There is like a zero chance.
Well, I wouldn't
start from small house.
I would not agree with the zero chance. My experience is most of these guys will lie and tell you anything you want to hear to get the deal. I can't tell you. Matter of fact, I was on the phone with an architect yesterday who, on a project I went after, I didn't get it. They hired a guy that just moved here from Florida. You know, I've been building in Central Texas for 30 years. This guy just moved into town, but I'm sure he gave him a screaming deal. Hey, I'm a good builder from Florida. I know what I'm doing here. This architect says it's the worst experience of her life.
It's very easy to check. Like, show me your project.
And well, he doesn't know the area. He doesn't know the subs. He doesn't know the vocabulary in Texas. He's not familiar with our processes. Everything was stacked against him. And it's not that I can't go to Florida and build a house. I mean, a lot of the processes are the same, but there's enough differences that if you're spending multiple millions of dollars, you should do more due diligence. It does surprise me sometimes on how poorly clients do due diligence, and how often they will make a decision off of just the economics, not realizing you're still going to spend the money. We all do this for profit. Every contractor works for profit. We're going to make the money some way, somehow, right? So I can either be transparent and show you exactly how I want to make the money, how much I want to make. And if you're happy with that, we're happy. But if for some reason you want to squeeze me to death and not let me make any money, I still have to pay my bills. I still have, kids going to college. I got to pay these things. I'm going to find a way to make money. That creates an adversarial relationship. We don't want that. Like in my world, life is too short to have that kind of relationship. So when these guys give you these really low numbers, I think they're just hiding the money somewhere else. They're going to make the money. So shoot for transparency. Any contractor that won't show you a breakdown of how he came up with his numbers, to me, that's a red flag, right? And so that money that they're going after, it does matter. Now, when you're talking about starting, I think if you knock on enough doors, you will find somebody give you a chance. But you can also find an investor. You can find an investor, or you can find somebody experienced who will sign off on the deal. Like if somebody came to me and said, I want to start a deal, will you help me? There's a way to work out a plan that works. What they have to understand is they don't get rich on that house.
Yep.
They get experience on that house. And some people aren't willing to do that. And so, but if I'm taking the risk, I'm going to make the money or the bulk of the money. So they have to understand that they have to work their way there. When somebody goes to college to learn to be whatever the thing is, an engineer, you're not getting paid for 4 years of learning. You're paying to learn to be that thing. So don't be so greedy to think, man, I got to make all this money on my first house or my first 2 or 3 houses. But once you've done a couple of houses, now you've got relationships with the banks. You've got proven track record. You've got happy clients.
Yeah.
You don't need help anymore. And so I think it's just the wrong attitude. It was what I was talking about earlier on the service side. To that person, it's transactional. I have to make this much money on this house or it's not worth me doing. Well, you're not valuing the experience you get. Now, I'm not looking for more experience. I don't need more lessons learned. If I never had another one, that'd be great. But I get them almost every day. But when you're starting out and you're new, you got to pay for education. And so think about that, because there's people that'll help you. There's investors that'll help you. There are banks that will lend. You just have to work really hard. When I started my business, I went to 13 banks. It was the 13th bank that did a deal for me. And they didn't even do the deal I wanted. All they ended up saying is, we can't do your deal, but we'll do this kind of deal if you can find one. And I said, I'll go find one. And that's, yeah. And I've had people brag that they're making 30 and 40% on homes. Two things. I mean, I think they're probably embellishing that a little bit. But I think they're also not doing what I'd call proper accounting. I think they're rolling in taxes. They're rolling in
don't include marketing,
direct costs, anything that's not specific to construction, all their overhead. Because at the end of the day, if I work on a project, I get paid a percentage of my time from that project.
Oh, of course.
That's not profit. That is part of the overhead of that job. To have my experience and my knowledge there, you've got to pay for it. And so when I'm talking about profit, we're not talking about my salary. We're talking about true net profit to the project, straight to the company. And so I think some people, they roll every number up because they're not paying themselves a salary. And so it's not exactly what they say it is, but it's not a flex. In my world, it's not a flex to brag about taking advantage of your client.
I remember you mentioned a really interesting rule. Expect the unexpected every single day. I really like this. Give me the story to prove it.
Well, I mean, it's so when I say that is because a lot of times people say, what kind of builder are you or whatever. And a lot of times I tell people I'm not a builder. I am a problem solver. It just so happens the people I'm helping need a home or need some sort of construction done. I'm solving that problem for them. But construction is a series of tasks that a lot of them will end up having some unexpected issue or problem. It's funny because when we were talking, you were like, give me an example. And I'm like, gosh, it happens so much. It's almost difficult to just bring something up. But here's an example. We're building a big, beautiful house out on the lake. We're about 95% done framing with it. And we do an electrical walk with all of our clients once the frame is up. So we met them on a Saturday and we're walking through the house and we're checking everything to make sure it all functions properly. And they walk into a room and they're like, this room's too dark. I think we need more windows. Well, we've already got the shielding up. We've got everything framed up. Adding a window itself is not a big deal. In most situations, it's not a big deal. But how the ripple effect impacts all the other trades. The masons were probably 2 weeks from starting. The stucco contractors were, not much further behind. And so there's a lot of things that needed to happen for them. There's a lot of things that need to happen. How does that shift push all of those things back? It's just a problem you've got to solve. Because if I put in new windows, I can't just call Pella or Marvin and say, send me windows. They take 6-8 weeks to get there.
Especially if the windows from floor to ceiling, if it's too wide, like there are a lot of complications.
Well, so we added 4 windows that day. Everything's great. We actually changed a structural beam. Believe it or not, the structural beam's easier because we just pull it out. Anyway, so everything's good. We're going again. We've solved the problem. And I get a phone call. Hey, we've been thinking about it. We want to add one more window. Which is fine. It's their house. They're the client. They live there. It's not a problem to add it other than it impacts how other things are going to get finished and done, because I've got to order that window. I've got to get it in the wall if I want the finishes to match correctly. In the past, we would have probably had the masons lay up and kind of leave things toothed around that window and had them tooth it back in later. In my experience, I've learned that that's a bad idea.
How do you personally deal with this kind of unexpected requests? Because one thing just to know how to do it, like technically. Another thing, just react correctly. Like, oh, we just finalized the design, but let's say we just build the frame and now we are talking about changing something. How do you react? How do you build this kind of?
I think it depends on your mood for the day, to be honest. Yeah. So that's a client driven change, but we have, and we design. When you start getting a complicated house going together, when you start having mechanical systems, plumbing, air conditioning, electrical, all working through a structure, you've got to structurally frame it where it's sound. Sometimes that creates areas where it's difficult to get these systems through. And we've been doing this for a long time. Our designers have been doing it for a long time. Guess what? You still run into a couple of spots where, how do I get air conditioning into that space, right? Those things happen. And so is it frustrating sometimes when it's day after day after day? There could be a little period where you're just 3 in a row and you're like, oh my gosh, have we ever designed a house before? What's going on? You have to just...
You just breathe in, breathe out, or what?
Well, there's an answer to everything.
Right on the horse.
Some things sound more complicated. I'll get a phone call, hey, we've run into this issue. What do you want to do? And I'm like, let's take a look. Here's what I know. I know that we're going to figure it out. It's frustrating because somebody wanted to start tomorrow who can't now, right? Because we couldn't finish the thing before him. Mm-hmm. Those are like where the frustrations happen, but in construction, it's going to happen. It doesn't matter commercial, residential. It doesn't matter if it's new. It doesn't matter if it's renovations. You're going to find things that you weren't prepared for, somebody didn't think about, or when you see it needs to change. It's just as common, in certain deals where you see something and you look at it and something's not right. And it's like, I've got to get the designer out here. I need to call the engineer because that connection I see up there, I'm not an engineer, but I know it's not right. And so you want to go address those things. But that's what we do. I mean, people pay for my problem solving. If they wanted to deal with that every day, they do it themselves, right? And
this is a very interesting point of view because you mentioned several times, like, I'm not a builder and problem solver. Like you cannot know everything. You will hire a contractor who knows some trades, right? Mm-hmm. But if you cannot solve problems quickly, I think it's
you'll never finish. Yeah. You'll never finish.
And how do you see, if you have any friends who just started maybe, or some people who just started building their first or second house, how first time builders or homeowners react on the problem and how experienced builders react? Like what is the difference?
Well, I think it's possible. I would say like the difference between me today and me 30 years ago mm-hmm. is I had to rely a lot more on my subcontractors to give me reliable information. And now I'm much better at realizing they're full of crap. It's not that the answer they give you is wrong. They're giving you the easy answer. And I'll give you a great example. Mm-hmm. I show up to one of our jobs and the HVAC had been set up and run. And we have a main beam that runs through the middle of the house. And they just took the air duct under the beam and over the beam. or back up. They looped under. And I said, all right, hey guys, what is this? And they said, well, there's no other way to get the duct through here. I see that. It's very obvious. Why don't you stop and ask the question?
Or brainstorm together.
Yeah. And they said, well, this happens all the time. We're just going to build a box around it. I'm like, you're absolutely not building a box around this. There's no way. We are not, box around air duct builders. This is a mistake. And I said, we're going to fix this. And it was just, and these are guys that I know. These are guys I've worked with. That's a frustrating day because I've never given them a reason to think we would do something like that. They all look at me like I'm the crazy guy. And I said, we're not going to have a hump in this duct. And
how did you fix this problem? You just
we
replaced trusses?
had to cut the beam, and we had to get the structural engineer to give us a repair. It's not as simple as just cut it and walk away. I mean, it's a solid beam for a reason, but there's a way to fix it. There's always a way to fix it, and that's but that's it's just one of those things.
So, are you saying? I really agree with you. Like, are you saying that contractors in many cases just simplify, or like they're trying to find the easiest solution?
The easy answer would be to build the box.
Yes.
So it ran through a closet. So we would have just dropped the ceiling in the closet. No one would ever notice in the closet. But in the bedroom, there would be a box coming out of the side of the wall, and people would say, "Why is that box there?" And oddly enough, I have been in spaces before. I've been in Airbnbs, or I've been at friends' houses where I'm a contractor. I look at everything, right? Sometimes I'm like, gosh, I really want to know why that thing is on the side of the wall. And now I know. It's just not ever something that ever even crossed my mind as a way to solve the problem. And my framer, my AC, like every guy was on board to say, Bruce, it's pretty common. We do this a lot. And, so an earlier version of me would have left a bump on the wall. The experienced custom home builder version of me says, there's no way, there's zero chance that we're leaving that.
And there is a follow-up question. Like, if you let me ask in a different way. So do you recommend to trust contractors and give them the freedom of making decisions, or to be like a very detailed, maybe sometimes over-controlling guy? Because they're like two approaches here. Oh, I trust everybody. Like they know the trade.
No, you've got to, it's laziness to not be, and over-controlling probably isn't the way I'd say it. I would be over-communicating. So I do have a lot of guys that make comments. It's like, I'm not an idiot. I know what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm not suggesting you are an idiot. But if the point comes where I'm going to call you an idiot, we've already messed up. Let's talk about it up front. So there's no reason for that conversation to ever happen. It's, tell me what we're doing. Let's explain it. Let's walk through every part of the process, because the details matter, right? The difference between a spec house and a custom home is the detail. How do different finishes interact with each other? How do spaces interact with each other? What happens when this surface comes into the, how do you finish these? All of these things matter, and it's super important. The more money people spend, the higher thought process and detail they expect. And so you have to think through that, and you got to sit down with both those subs, or three of those subs, or sometimes four of those subs, and say, you're coming this way, you're coming this way. Who's the last guy? Who puts that last piece of trim on? Who puts that last piece of molding, or whatever the thing is? All that matters. And yeah, sometimes they're like, I'm tired of talking about it. Listen, if it's wrong, I'm going to expect you to fix it. And I just want to do it right the first time. All I want to do is do it right the first time. And so I would say I would tend to be more on the over-controlling side than I am on the freedom. I have some guys, we talk about it one time. I can tell by the way they answer the questions or explain it to me, they know what they're doing, right? That's easy. There are other guys who don't actually explain it. They just said, don't worry about it. It's going to be great. No, I am worried about it. That's why I'm here. Explain what's happening. And I can give you an example of that. And this is for a project that a client asked me to do. It's not something we normally do. It's a renovation. But it's a good client of mine, and worked with him for years. And so I said, sure, no problem. We'll do it. Was talking to the, so I do things sometimes a little different than people. So for example, in my house, I like my painter and my tape float person to be the same person. So there's no argument between, did the texture, is it right or is it wrong, whatever. So I like him to be the same guy. And in the tile world for showers and tubs, I like my tile guy to also do the waterproofing. If there's a leak, there's nobody to argue with. He did it all. It's his issue. So like I had my tile guy doing the waterproofing, and he did the waterproofing in the morning, and I came back to that job site in the evening, and he was already grouting out the floor and leveling. I said, have you waterproofed? Have you tested it yet? He's like, you didn't ask me to test the waterproofing. I said, well, I wanted you to do waterproofing. How do you know it's waterproof if you didn't test it? Well, I never agreed to test it. I just agreed to waterproof it.
He just has a different approaches, and when there will be leakage.
So we had this conversation. I said, okay, so you put some waterproofing in. I'm not even sure you let it dry long enough, but you have no proof that it actually works. So you really didn't do anything, because if it leaks, what are you going to do? He goes, well, I'll fix it. I go, okay, stop. Think about that. You're about to put in thousands of dollars worth of tile. This is a nice project. If it's wrong, you got to tear it all out. Stop and wait one day and test it. And it was an argument. Like, it became an argument for me to get.
But usually, if it's a walk-in shower, there should be like a mandatory test of.
Correct.
You claim that builders who land, let's say, 2 million plus clients aren't better craftsmen. They're usually better communicators, right? So it's a kind of very important skill for builders to speak with the client. So can you explain this?
Yeah, it's much more important than a technical expertise. Now, certainly you've got, as a builder, you've got to be able to look at things and know they were done right, or question if you think something's been done wrong. Some of that's really simple. It's a tape measure. The house is framed up. Okay, let me spend a couple hours going around. Let's make sure all the windows are where they're supposed to be. They're the right sizes. These are things that you don't have to be a super experienced guy to do. But it's in the world of communication. So it's just like you're talking about being kind of over managing some of the subs. It's how do you communicate with the sub to make sure he's installing what you want, because the subs are still kind of the backbone of what's going on. How it functions, how it works, what it's going to look like is still up to the sub, because they install the work. But it's how are you communicating with them? It's how are you communicating with your client? There's times when you tell a client, listen, happy to make this change for you. That could delay the project a couple months. Or, do you want that? We've got clients who, they're moving out of a beautiful home into a more beautiful home. So another 2 months, they don't care. They're like, I want what I want, and that's great, and that's fine. But you've got to set expectations, and you've got to manage expectations. People that are moving into $3 and $4 million houses, they've lived a life where they've earned money. They've probably been in high decision and authority positions. So they also communicate differently than maybe somebody moving into a first-time starter home, right? They expect you to communicate differently with them. They don't need a lot of stuff. They need answers. They need to have confidence that you know what's happening. So when you say, hey, this is a delay, this will cost more, this is a savings, this is not the right way. And I'll be honest with you, there are times when we look at things and we're like, everybody stop, I don't like this, let's double check. Bring the engineer out. I can even get him on the phone on a Zoom call real quick. Are you sure this is okay? Yes, 100%. Perfect. All right. Just wanted to double check, because these are really expensive properties.
What system are you using for keeping client informed? Like, let's be very specific, because I feel sometimes first-time builders like overcomplicate. Oh, do I need this very expensive, the brand of software that's very popular on the market? Oh, I need just a Slack maybe, or WhatsApp. Like, what software maybe you're using?
For communication?
Yeah, just
phone, email, and Zoom.
So nothing crazy.
Nothing crazy. No, I think that people can get too bogged down in that. I mean, we've got some construction accounting softwares and things that we use that help us on the billing side, but face-to-face or verbal conversation is still the best way to communicate it. I might follow up with an email or a text message or something to that effect, but all of our clients, in the way we run they all have all of our cell phone numbers. They've got the whole company cell phone number. So if they call our superintendent and can't reach him, they can call our PM. They can call our owners. And
but
so,
do you have any kind of like a board or wherever folder where you keep all photos? So like how you
internally we do. Every project has a folder, and that's most of those documents are still in Word and Excel. There's nothing we're doing that's so complicated that it's any more difficult. And we go to a lot of conferences and builder shows. I mean, we even go to like the international builder shows down in Miami and Vegas, wherever they happen to be. We've got guys trying to cram softwares down our throat every time we go to those things. And the reality is we don't work at a volume, and maybe that's the reason we're different. We're building, 5-6 houses a year. We're not trying to build 50 houses a year as a custom home builder, because we build unique and special houses. So our experience is different, but Word and Excel is good.
But to keep communication with clients, you just have
a weekly. Most of our clients, we do a weekly phone call. If they're out of town, it's a Zoom call. I would say 9 out of 10 of those calls can literally be on the telephone. Here's what's going on. Here's what's happening. Here's what's next. Maybe 1 out of 10, maybe 2 out of 10, we need to get on a Zoom call, open up the plans and say, let me show you what's going on. I'd say half of our clients are from out of state, and then half of them are from Austin. They're just upgrading. So the ones from Austin, we do tend to meet with them a little more regularly. And then we have regular set meetings where we're going to walk, so air conditioning, electrical, plumbing, all of that gets walked couple of times before we start covering things up with sheetrock.
So first-time builders don't need any fancy, expensive software.
Oh no! I mean,
start building first house.
I think that. So I remember when I went into business for myself. Obviously, I worked as a contractor or employee for a lot of different contractors for a lot of years, and I can tell you that I had visions of how it was to be done. I spent way too much time thinking about all of those things. The number one thing you have to do is go find a deal. And I would tell you that in any business you're going to do. Go find a deal. If you're really an entrepreneur and you're going to be successful, you're going to find a way to make that deal work. All the prep to get a deal makes you nothing. It all costs you money, costs you time and energy. Go find a deal and then solve the problems for that deal, and you're going to be fine. Again, going back to problem solving. So, I wasted a lot of time thinking about, I'm not going to say irrelevant things, just things that didn't matter. What's the name of my company? What kind of entity am I going to be? What bank am I going to use? What accounting system?
What messenger to use for communication?
Who cares? I didn't have a deal, right? Yeah. So I would tell them, go find a deal and then worry about those things, because you can set up a company overnight. You can open a bank account quickly. All of the things you think you need, you can do those after you have the deal.
What are your red flags when you start talking with a prospective clients? Like you feel, oh no, like this is a red flag. Will be a problem very soon. So if two things, one is general. Trust your gut. I have had conversations with clients where we will be at a meeting, a coffee meeting or a lunch meeting, and I would actually say, I'm going to decline. And for whatever that reason is, and sometimes they're upset. I say, I just don't think I want to work for you. So, but if it's not gut feeling, like what's really visible?
Everything better go back to your gut. If your gut hasn't told you anything, you haven't talked to them enough. So you're going to find out in the conversation. I would say personalities. Just the way you talk to each other. You're hiring me because I'm an expert at what I do. And so if you're not going to trust me and let me be the expert and let me run the project, I wouldn't want to work for you. Doesn't mean I'm not going to include you and communicate really well, but I'm going to run the job. And so there's some people you can tell very quickly they're going to be way too. I don't have any problem with the clients coming out to the job site. Come out as much as you want. but I can't have you there bogging down my superintendent all day, every day. So he's going to meet with you once a week for an hour, but I need him working, right? So you can walk around and do whatever you want, but you can't walk around and ask 1,000 questions every single day and take away from our resources that are building your house. That's just not, I've learned that that's not a situation that I would want. We'd have regular scheduled meetings. We're going to walk them. We're going to answer the questions. We're going to solve the problems. So that's a big one. You can tell sometimes they probably don't have the money. And I mean, I hate to make it sound that way, but we build nice houses. It probably doesn't matter what kind of house you build. If you're building $500,000 houses, probably going to talk to a lot of people that can only afford a $300,000 house. So you have to also flesh that out. People don't understand that, we hire professional designers. We don't order our plans from Pakistan or wherever people draw them up. They cost money. They cost real money to hire professionals. Our designers do all of the architectural, all the interior design, landscaping plans, all of it, structural, mechanical, like everything's designed. We go through it. We spend a lot of time and resources to make sure we build the house correctly. Nothing's worse than going to a house, and everybody probably either has lived in a house like this or knows somebody who lives in a house like this. They have 2 rooms where the air conditioning is always hot or it's always cold. Well, why was that? It was designed wrong. Whoever did it wrong. And to fix it now, you got to tear out all the ceilings and you go through. So you never do. We want to avoid those kind of issues. And so we use professionals. And so people sometimes don't want to do it or they want to cut corners. I'll give you an example. We actually had a client who said, I have a lot of, he's an international shipper. And he says, I can buy a lot of material from different countries and probably save us money. How do you feel about it? And I said, well, then let's explain what the issues are, because I'm not going to ever tell a client to not try and save money. I said, if I go buy that thing here, let's just say it's decking for a deck. It's a high-end wood or whatever. If I buy it here, I get serviced by the people I buy it from. If I hire a contractor who does it, I get a warranty. A lot of times your subs say, if you want a warranty on this thing, I'm going to buy it and install it. If I'm just a labor guy, I'm not warrantying whether the thing works or not. If it goes out, it goes out. And this is because it's either an installation problem or a material problem, but I'm not going to come find out if I didn't do both. And I think that's fair and reasonable. So we have a conversation about that. Yes, if you think you can save $100,000 on this material, we have to look at that. Can you get it to me when I need it? What happens when it's late? What happens when it comes in broken or damaged? Let's just talk through all of that stuff. Let's make sure that this is actually the great decision that you think it is, because if it is, let's do it. As a matter of fact, if it is, I might start calling you to order more of that for my other clients, right? But you got to communicate all of that stuff. And so those kind of conversations, you got to dig in. It's very rare that I just meet somebody once and just say yes or no. They'd have to be pretty awful. They'd have to have a pretty terrible person. I can get along with just about anybody, but some of them are so awful that you know right away, and you know why. If somebody comes in and says, I've talked to 20 contractors, how are you going to be different? I'm like, it's a pretty good red flag, because if 20 other guys haven't wanted to work for you, I'm probably not going to want to work for you either.
I agree with you about like visiting job sites every day, asking, hundreds of questions. But if you're just meeting with the prospective client, you still don't know. And like he may say, I just have $500,000. Just like, it's not about being, broke, or like he just have this amount of money, but there are several ways to say this, right? He can say like, hey man, I just have this money, what you can do for me? Or he can say like, give me the cheapest possible wherever.
Sure. So generally our first contact is over the phone. We'll probably get an email or some sort of a message that says, I'd like to talk to you about a house. Because we on our website, I think we ask 3 or 4 or 5 questions. But ultimately, we're going to get on a phone call. Very rarely would we meet somebody just face to face for our very first meeting. We'd have conversations. How much do you have to spend? What are you expecting to get for that? We do get a lot of phone calls where somebody says, "I've got $400,000. I'd like a 2,200 square foot house."
Just disqualify this lead, and you don't spend time for
right. And that's what we would. Well, and I don't mind giving them a little advice, just saying I'm not sure you're going to find that. You probably have to go buy an old house that's sitting on the ground already somewhere, and it's probably not going to be. It won't be in Austin. It's going to be outside of town somewhere. They're probably out there. Sometimes I tell them go find a mobile home. You can definitely do that. But yeah, so we flesh a lot of that stuff out. So we do disqualify a lot of people just from budgeting reasons or kind of expectation reasons, because it's funny. Somebody says, I've got $1.5 million, which we would probably talk to somebody at 1.5 pretty thoroughly. I've got $1.5 million, but I want a 5,000 square foot house. And it's like, now you're getting to a point where the thing I build you is kind of a garbage house, and I don't want you telling people that I built that. That's not what I want. That's not what I built. And so we've got to make decisions around that. Is there are levels of quality that I think you could find somebody to build cheaper for you and save you some more money.
How do you feel? What is the only? What is the one early conversation between homeowner and builder that saves the most money and pain? Like what could it be? What type of conversation? Just about the price or something
else? Well,
I
think it's aligning. So it's the three things, right? It's, do you have the money? Is the scope appropriate for the money you have? And is your timeline okay? Like I'll have somebody say, hey, I would like to start by, if you came to me right now and said, I want to be under construction in October, I doubt that's going to happen. We've got to get the designer on board. We've got to get it designed. We've got to get it permitted. Super duper crazy unlikely that could happen, even if I had an architect sitting around with nothing going on. It's not enough time to give a quality product. We have people that said, I'd like to be in. I would say our average house probably takes around 14 months. Let's say 12 to 15 months anyway. And there's houses, some of them take 18, 19, 20 months, depending on how big they are. So, but people will come to you and they're like, I need to move in 9 months.
Unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, so those are tough. Now, that doesn't mean we tell them no. We just say, I can't do that, and I don't think anybody else can. So be careful if somebody else tells you that. But if you can change your schedule, we can keep talking.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. You have a very interesting experience. You work in a very different roles, subs, GC, public utility, right? Developer, owner, operated. Take me through this path. Like, which chapter taught you the most as a builder, as a person?
That is a great question. I don't know if I've ever answered that. Well, let's start at the beginning. So, graduated high school and became a mason. I actually really enjoyed being a mason, and that's I started as a laborer, slinging mud and just hauling brick and block, and then I graduated and got to start laying. But I will tell you, it was super physically demanding. When you're 18, 19 years old, you don't mind as much. But I do remember a very specific moment. It was cold outside. We were at lunch. Everybody's eating. And I remember it being cold because you could see everybody's breath, the fog. Yes. But all the guys that I'm working with they were probably mid 40s. And these guys were just
masculine,
broken up. Well, they were just broken down from working out in the sun and fingers all. And I was looking at that and I go, man, that's not what I think I want to look like when I'm 40. And I said, I got to find something else to do. So I see a guy walking around on the job site and he's in, a button-down shirt and nice slacks and everything. So I walk over to him and I just say, hey, who are you? What do you do here? He's like, I'm the project manager. And I go, how do I do that? He's like, you got to go to college. I'm like, oh. At the time I didn't want to. And so we had a conversation. He said, you should check out some schools. I talked to a couple more of the GCs that we worked for. Every single one of them said Texas A&M was a place to go. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, I'll go to A&M. Went there, got a construction science degree, went out and worked for several contractors over several years. I've built a lot of different things. I've worked on federal work, state work. I've worked on universities, schools, restaurant chains. I built Walmarts. I built HEBs. You name it. Like I was very fortunate to get to work on a lot of different things and experience a lot of different types of construction. And then had an opportunity to go work for a developer in San Antonio, Trammell Crow, which is a super well-known developer. They kind of got gobbled up by CBRE, but two of the largest real estate companies. CBRE is probably the largest in the world. I went to San Antonio to work down there. Loved that job. Mm-hmm. It was great. And that was owner's rep stuff. And I spent a little time working at Baylor University as an owner's rep as well. So I got to see that side and how I treated contractors after I'd been treated differently by other owners reps. And then when was it? The 2008 financial crisis hit, and I went out looking for a job. That's when I ended up at CPS Energy in San Antonio. That's their public power company. And we built substations and transmission lines. And so I'm the guy that would go condemn your property so I could run a nice, beautiful transmission line through your backyard. Let's say I was not very liked by people when we did that, but learned a lot about how the public side works, and certainly made me hungry to go back to the private sector. Had an opportunity to move to Austin and came up here and told my wife at the time, I said, look, I've worked for a lot of contractors, worked a lot of different places. And if that doesn't happen at this next place, I'm going to start my own thing. And so I knew on the second day I was there, I wasn't going to stay. And so.
Which part of this journey taught you the most, that is very helpful for you now?
Well, I think probably what the thing that has helped me the most is the way I can read and understand people, and I'm not, there's not a fear around over communicating. Mm-hmm. It's literally noticing a facial expression versus a comment. It's maybe a body movement that just looks weird because I've seen it. I've been treated like garbage by a GC. I've probably treated a sub like garbage as a GC. As an owner's rep, I've been, it's been both directions on all of these things. So I know what those things feel like from both sides. And so when I see it now, I can stop and say, you did something that made me feel like maybe what I said didn't make sense or you didn't like it, but tell me what just happened there. And I've gone through a lot of training to try and get better and better and better at noticing those things, because that plants a little seed, that negativity, right? It'll plant a little seed in month 1 that grows. And by month 9, 10, 11, we've never pulled it out by the root and we've never solved it. And so it just makes the experience for the client that much less enjoyable. The whole point of this, and I tell my clients all the time, you are about to build your number one investment. Mm-hmm. For your whole life. One of
the biggest.
Yeah, you're going to live here for probably you're planning to live here for the rest of your life. It's amazing how many of these people build another one. But you want to live here for the rest of your life. This should be fun. Mm-hmm. Like this, you should really enjoy as you talk about, your kitchen or your whatever room is, these spaces that you're really excited because you haven't had one and you want one. You should be excited about this. You shouldn't be, in a bad mood or whatever. And so I want them to have a great experience. And the best way to do that is just to communicate and understand that their communication in both directions. So I think that's helped me a ton on recognizing that stuff and getting better at just being brave enough to say, I know you don't like it. So tell me now, like, say it. And then after a couple of weeks or a couple of months, usually they have no problem. They're like, well, hey, I didn't like that. Perfect. That's a perfect answer. My feelings aren't hurt. Let's solve the problem, right?
By the way, you touched very interesting point of like education for builders. So formally, there is no like MBA for builders, right? You can get construction degree, you can get some trades.
There's probably an MBA for it.
I mean,
but
like from I found some from Columbia Business School, but I can hardly imagine builders go to Columbia.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, I'm an Aggie. I went to A&M has probably one of the best construction science programs in the nation, if not the best.
Was it beneficial for you, like from
you want me to say this on where people are going to see me answer this? Yeah. I needed the degree to get some of the jobs that I got. I would have never gotten in with Trammell Crow. I would have. There's probably a few contractors I would have never worked for. So I value the fact that I got it. Did I need it? No.
A lot of unnecessary information.
Well, every college degree has a lot of unnecessary information, right? I still haven't used that astronomy class, but I would just say that you're more valuable to me if you've been working in construction for 4 years than if you've been in college, beer drinking and taking tests. That doesn't help me a lot. I need a guy that can walk out on a job site and say, you're about to pour the concrete wrong.
I had a conversation with one builder, and he repeatedly said again and again, like, learn the trade. Like, do you agree with this point, or you still feel like you can hire people? Because you cannot be at the same time electrician, plumber, HVAC guy. Like, you still should have some core skills.
Yeah. Well, so if you're interested in construction, you're interested in most of it. So it doesn't mean that I can go wire a house. But when I'm having a conversation with an electrician, I can understand enough of what he's explaining that it either makes sense or it doesn't. And I'm also bold enough to ask, that doesn't make sense. Dumb it down for me. Let's make sure we're both on the same page. That happens with every trade. Some are more complicated, some are others. But the reality is none of the stuff is that complicated. The main guts of every house, it's concrete, it's wood, it's sheetrock. Mechanical systems don't get complicated in the, let's say, the installation of ductwork as much as it is maybe the operation of the unit. That unit could do some really cool stuff. You can have like the purest air and all these things. But that's a package system that comes in that we got to get power to it and turn it on. The rest of the distribution is still pretty simple and basic. Same thing with plumbing. Water needs to get from here to here. How do we get it through? Power, the same way. So understanding how the systems work, yes. I don't know how you could be a contractor.
But to be able to do with your hands, like it's
yeah,
like too much.
So I could go to a house and swap a couple outlets, but I'm not going to wire a house. I could go change faucets or toilets or things if I need to at the last minute because whatever. I can do those things. I don't know that that's super valuable. If you have a company, you should always have a guy capable of doing that. If you, the owner, are doing that, maybe on your first couple houses, you want to do it yourself, having the tools. I'll give you this. I think having the tools to do the work is a lot of contractors' biggest impediment. There's one reason I don't have a lot of tools. And I have tools, but because I'm the kind of guy that says, I've told you to fix this twice, you haven't. I'm just going to fix it. I'll bring my stuff. I'll do it tomorrow. That's not where I need to spend my day. My day needs to be out, making sure our jobs are going well, right? And so I would caution a contractor to say, you shouldn't be swinging a hammer. I mean, you want to get to a point where you're not that guy. But maybe you do on a couple of houses so you know how it happens. Are you saving yourself time and money doing the trim yourself? No. You're not thinking about the opportunity cost. Where could you be instead of putting trim in? Where could you be rather than hanging doors and hardware, right? You can be going and landing another job. or maybe 2 more. You'll never know because you missed the thing where you could have met those people. And I met them instead. So thank you. But
And you can run your own construction company, right? Mm-hmm. So like what did owning a company teach you?
So
because this is like very entrepreneurial experience, like very different.
It is. So I will say that owning a company taught me that none of my previous employers were nearly as dumb as I thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was funny because I did work for a few places and I'm like, man, I just don't know how these guys stay in business doing the way they do. But I didn't have enough visibility on the back end, right? And I cannot tell you how many moments I had, okay, I understand why they do that now, or they did that now. I went in knowing nothing. So I hired a bookkeeper immediately. And the company just kind of scaled and grew. But it's the other thing that I think, and this is probably what I think kills most entrepreneurs or people that think they're entrepreneurs, is you're the last line of defense. If you're the last guy who can do it, there's nobody else behind you.
Yeah.
So I will give you an example. When I first started, when you're talking about doing all this work, yeah, I was the last guy. So it was a commercial project. It was a finish out. Client was going to move in the next day. My painter didn't show up. Now he had painted probably half the space. But he just didn't show up on the last day to paint. I couldn't get in touch with him on the phone. Well, do you know what I did for about 12 hours? I showed up about 5 o'clock and I worked till about 5 o'clock the next morning. I finished painting because they were moving in the next day. There wasn't anybody else I could send in that moment. I was a new company. I didn't have employees. I didn't have a ton of the sub trades where I could just call somebody and have them pull guys off of another job to come help me. I just had to go do that. And I'm going to tell you, it's the moments like that are going to tell you if you're an entrepreneur or not. Because a lot of people are going to be like, nah, I'm not doing it. I'm just going to
I don't want to be the last line of defense.
Yeah.
I just want to be.
And they don't know what that feels like until they're in that moment. And I will tell you, that still happens to this day. There's still moments where maybe not as much that I have to do it, but I'm real big on the mantra that I'm here right now. Nobody else is here. I don't want to pick up trash, but there's a bunch of trash on my job site. Nobody else is here. So I'm going to pick up trash and get it done because my only other option is to make phone calls, make guys drive an hour to spend an hour picking up trash. I could have it done before he could even get here. So, I don't know the right answer to that. That's just my personal mentality on things is you've got to be willing to work, but I don't think you should plan to be the guy that works, if that makes sense.
Do you feel like hiring wedding contractors are the most challenging part of the building business, I would say? I see a lot of builders complaining like, oh, I cannot hire right contractors, so they're just, hosting me, or they're just disappearing, work unfinished. Like it's like every day.
It even happens with the good contractors. So most residential subs are, what is it? A disease, a death, or a divorce away from disappearing. Like they, you have guys that just don't show up, and you get a phone call the next week, and they're like, "Hey, I got arrested. I got a DUI," or and the whole company closed. You're like, "Are you
kidding me?"
Yeah, but again, expect the unexpected every day because I wish I could tell you that has only happened once. I can tell you, with the number of flat tires that my subs get, I would think that I could start a tire manufacturing company. But there are good subs. And what I would tell you is pride in your craftsmanship is what matters to me. And we'll find a great team and everything's going great. And then you lose 1 or 2 guys for whatever reason, right? Sometimes they just don't get along with each other. But it's pride in craftsmanship. So I shouldn't have to tell you, hey, I need you to go look at this. I don't like it. I don't think that you should be proud of that. I think a sub should be done with something and say, this just doesn't look right. And they should fix it. But I would say probably more often than not that the tendency is I got to finish this thing so I can, because I have another job to start on Monday. And if I start this over, I'm not going to finish. And so, but at the level of house we're building, you can't do that. You've got to tear it out. Now, if you're down on spec houses, you probably can leave a little crooked line here or a little small nick on a piece of tile or something. You can't do that on the houses we build. It's got to be perfect. And even to this day, there's still times when I walk in, I'm like, who thought it was okay to leave this tile in the middle of this wall? What do you mean? There's a chunk missing out of it. Well, I didn't do it. Well, I don't care who did it. It has to come off the wall, right? Like we're not leaving it there. And it's those things, right?
Can you give advice to first-time builders how to vet contractors? Because to find some prospective leads, it's not very hard now, but how to vet them correctly?
Yeah, so they're at a disadvantage because you can usually do it through a good conversation, but that's because I have experience and I can tell if they're, BSing me or they actually know what they're doing. You've got to talk to previous clients, period. But you can't ask questions like, are you happy or did you like it? Because they can get their buddy to answer those questions. It's, were they on time? Did they show up when they said did they communicate? Explain how they communicated with you. Were there any mistakes that they had to come back and fix? Did they do it? How well did, those are the questions that matter. It's not, did you like what they did? Or those are all general surface level stuff. You got to get into the weeds. They gave you a budget. Did they stick to the budget? Why did they change them? Dig into each one of those questions. Don't just stop when they say, yeah, they gave me a budget. They hit it pretty good. No. Were there change orders? Were there any? Are you sure? That's the best way to do it. But at the end of the day, you are kind of rolling the dice. I will say, I think I've taken some subs that maybe weren't great subs and I've turned them into great subs because they've literally told me, I've never had a GC sit down and explain this the way that you did. And I was not going to install it.
So basically one of the advice you gave, like ask for previous projects done,
previous
right?
projects, but you've got to drill into those questions. And I would say, was it finished on budget, on time? Tell me about the change order process. Tell me about their communication process. Did they communicate well? Did you have good answers? All of that stuff. And I think what I had alluded to is sometimes I have to take a sub and kind of micromanage them a little bit and almost turn them into a good sub, where I've literally had subs that say, I've never done that, because I think it's pretty simple. I send you a contract and I said, if you want to get paid, I need a W-9 from you. It says it in my contract. And subs will just send me an invoice. Can you pay this by Friday? I'm like, no. Give me a W-9.
I will be filing taxes.
Well, and they're like, what's a W-9? Okay. And I'm like, you just told me you've been in business for 4 years. Yeah, but I've never had anybody ask me for a W-9. And I'm like, how are you getting paid?
Yes.
And then I'm like, what do they know that I don't know? But no, we make them go through the process. I'm like, show me your insurance. I don't like your coverages. Can you call your insurance company and have them fix this? And some of them do it, some of them don't. Some of them want to kind of grow and do better work. Sometimes they don't understand. There's a reality that some of the quality levels that I want, people said, I can't make you happy. I can't do what you want. And I'm going to go do this other stuff. No problem. Like knowing your limitations is good. There's certain kind of projects that I don't want to build. Right. And so I understand the same thing for the subs. But ultimately if you hire 15 subs for a project, you're probably going to get a couple bad ones. I would tell you it's the same way with hiring employees. You hire slow, but you fire fast, right? And so as soon as you see there's a problem, just get rid of them. Just get rid of them.
Yeah, I don't know why some builders feel like hiring and firing people in construction industry is different to service business or wherever, software companies. Like it's the same principles.
The subs get mad at us. They have little underground websites where they all can talk negatively about us. But at the end of the day, if somebody gets mad at me because I wanted them to do the work right, I've had to fire subs and tear out everything they did because it was all wrong. And then they send me a bill for thousands of dollars for work they did. And I said, the work you did was wrong. You cost me money because I had to tear out the tile I provided you. And I always feel like I'm always using tile as an example, but it's an easy one. But I had to tear out the stuff I bought because you did it wrong. And now you want to be paid for that? And, so I have no problem firing people that can't do the job right. Everybody makes mistakes. But it's how you come back and fix it. Are you willing to do that? Are you spending time? I'm not paying you extra to come back and fix the thing that you messed up the first time.
I had one crazy story when the master plumber that was hired for big multi-million house sub-hire a guy under his license, and then they connected hot water and cold water in the wrong way, and then client realized this, and we asked him what happened, and he was trying to hide this, but we realized he just hired the guy who made this job, and this guy just disappeared.
Yep.
Do you have a kind of case like this?
Well,
how do you control that they are not hiring sub cheapest possible plumbers?
So
electricians.
That does happen. Now, ultimately, my contract is going to be with the master. The master is going to have to come fix it, right? That happens because even if I hire the master, he uses his own staff, he's probably not the guy out there, welding, and gluing pipe. So that's stuff is still going to happen. For me, it's how well are you going to fix it yourself? Framers are a good example. Framers help each other out. Some are slow, some are busy. So it's not always the same exact crew. I just want the same foreman if I can get him. But the crews, they work differently. A lot of the concrete subs, they only have the employees where they just set up the slab, but they hire another company to come help them actually pour the slab and finish the slab. So a lot of that happens. Again, it's communication. How are you going to do this? Are you using your own guys? Do you sub this out? Who do you sub it to? How many have they done? I'm hiring you. Are you the subject matter expert? If you're not, I want to talk to the guy that's a subject matter expert. I'm really OCD about slabs. I am annoying to my concrete subs because of how many questions I ask, how many inspections I do. I require the structural engineer to come inspect, and I bring in a third-party inspector every slab I do because I'm not messing up a slab. You build a house on top of a bad slab, and
it's the most important part of
you're going to have a bad day. Right. I overdo it, but the way rebar is tied, the way it's spaced, where it's located, it all matters. It really does. And if you're not if you don't take pride in your work to know those things, that scares me because that's all you need to know about. I have to know about everything else in this house. You need to know that, right? And sometimes it kind of blows my mind when I say, hey, you see that water bottle down at the bottom of that grade beam? And they're like, yeah. I said, I want it out of there. Nobody's going to know what's there. I agree. Nobody will know, but I know because I can see it right now and we haven't poured it. Just pull it out. Why am I asking you this? Those are just simple things, right?
Oh man, it's very complicated and challenging part to hire right people, especially for house builds.
It is.
Why does first-time builders need separate roles if they are building a business like Cleo Builders?
It's hard to do everything. There's a lot of jobs that have to be done, and just like in construction, you got to know what you're good at and what you're not. I'm not an accountant, so if I'm doing the accounting, you're in trouble, right? And so
IRS will call you.
Well, no, they call anyway. CPA, I still get called, but no, it's just understanding where you fit and what you want to know. As an owner of a company, you've got to understand your money, but I don't know if you need to be doing the daily input. If you like that, I'd say great, go ahead and do it. But you've got to bring people in that are experts in what they do. I like to be in the field. I like to build. I don't want to sit in an office, doing paperwork all day. I like to be a part of the construction. And so it kind of fit. I will say with Cameron's pretty experienced in everything. She can be everywhere. She worked for a home builder before she started this business. And I should say that when I'm talking about starting a company, I didn't start Cleo Builders back in those days. I had another company that I sold in 2020, and I came to work for Cameron. But she's in the field. She really likes the design side, so she loves helping clients pick the colors and finishes and all that stuff. She loves that. So that's where she thrives, and that's what she wants to do. I think she's perfectly fine with me going to the job site at 4 a.m. to get ready for a concrete pour at 5 or 6 a.m.
Who actually makes sales to the client? Like you as a subject person?
We both do. She's probably more in the lead on the sales because she's doing a lot of the social media stuff. I've been in the business a lot longer, so I have a few more contacts. And so we just, whoever can sell it, I would say that we tell this to all of our employees. If you bring in a deal, we're going to pay you a finder's fee the same way we paid somebody else a finder's fee. So we are all looking for the work, but at this point we don't have to chase very hard to find projects. We've been pretty fortunate in that regard. And so, but she's the business development person.
Cool. Where do budgets actually blow up on 2 million build? Like,
I think when you say blow up, once you've finished the plan and you've gone through your pricing exercises, I wouldn't use the word blow up. But the biggest things, if there's that commodity shift, right? Because it's never just lumber.
Expect unexpected.
Right. So let's say oil, the Iran thing, oil goes up quite a bit. Well, that affects lumber, steel, copper, lighting, everything that's going to be shipped to us, right? And so it doesn't have to be one thing goes up 25%. Everything goes up 5 or 10%. It has a huge impact on the project. I think what ends up happening, though, is as things are going, your client will be like, oh my gosh, I went and visited a friend this weekend and they have a thing and I have to have the thing. It could be as simple as reworking the kitchen a little bit on one wall. It could be as big as we're redoing the whole pool, right? And you might go from a $250,000 pool to a $500,000 pool. Well, I can't really control either one of those things. Now, I can go find another sub who might save us 1 or 2% or things like that. But when it comes to actually what the materials cost, I'm not the manufacturer. I can't impact that. Everybody pretty much pays the same labor amounts, the same profit amounts. And if it's a reliable company, everything else ends up settling about the same. So if you've done the initial budget correctly, it shouldn't blow up unless there's one of those two big changes.
How often did it happen that contractors call you and say, hey man, I'm spending much more on gas, or I'm spending much more on something else that relates to current macroeconomical or economical conditions? Is it like common that contractors subs can call you and say this?
No, I mean, once we're under contract, you're usually bound to it.
Yeah, but still, it's a human relationship.
If it was a big deal, we would try and help. Every one of those situations is different. I have subs that have probably done 100 projects for me. There's a high level of trust. They know exactly what I want and expect. They've helped me out probably dozens of times when I needed help. And so that guy might get treated different than, a guy that's only done a project or two for me. I don't think that would be the issue. It probably wouldn't be something like the fuel prices. It would probably, because we're all eating that, like I'm paying the same bills you are, buddy, and I feel it too. So you want me to feel it for me and for you. So that's a tougher one. It's just more along the lines of, let's say we had the conversation about, let's use tile again. We had the conversation, here's how I want it. and the client came in later and it's like, that I don't like that. I want to redo it. In that scenario where I think they've done it right, and the client maybe just didn't like maybe the pattern or something. Yeah, that's a change order, right? And so that's an easier place for me to help them. But if it was, I'm trying to think of an example where somebody just said, "Hey, I'm in trouble." I've had a couple people say, "I underbid this," and I've actually had a couple people underbid something where I think they underbid it, and I actually put more money in that budget line because of that, as almost I'm just going to wait and see what happens here. And I've had those phone calls where I'm like, "Yeah, I thought you did, so I added more money, and this is all I got. But you can have it. It was here for you."
You wouldn't believe I yesterday had a case when subcontractor called me and say like, "Hey, I made mistake in my calculations and it's like plus $1,000, $2,000, but I will not be paying from my margin. So like, just eat it." It was pretty interesting conversation.
Yeah. So because a lot of times, here's what makes me laugh about subcontractors. And I'm not making fun of them, but again, when you talk about like having integrity and being a man of your word, the problem is I'm not paying my painter for 2 coats of paint. I'm paying my painter for a green wall. I'm paying my painter or my tape and floater to tape and float to the level of finish that I expect. Our houses are usually level 4, level 5. I don't care how much mud it takes. I don't care how many coats of paint it takes. I'm paying for green. I'm not paying for 2 coats or 10 gallons or whatever and that's where we have a lot of struggles because I'll get a bid from them that they want me to sign. Well, you never sign that stuff. I write them a contract and I'm like, "You're going to get paid the way I get paid. You're going to install the way I get installed." Sometimes they come back and they're like, "Well, I gave you this bid that said all this stuff." I'm like, "You can say whatever it wants, but you work for me. I don't work for you." But the problem is a lot of these guys, they work 50% of the time for a homeowner directly, and that's how they get paid. I'm like, I will never pay you up front. If you need materials purchased, I'll buy the materials and have them delivered, but that's how people steal from you. And the reality is, if you've been a contractor for any amount of time, and it doesn't take long, you've had subs steal from you. And it's just not going to happen. If you have a sub that comes to you now, if we were both talking about it and I said, "Hey, I want you to give me a bid for 200 lineal foot of 6-inch baseboard," and he's like, "Hey, Bruce, I installed 200 feet and we need 200 more." Okay, you're going to get paid. But if you go do the takeoff and say, "I'll do all the base for X amount of dollars," and you say, "Hey, I came up short," I'm like, "Well, I got a bid from you that said you do it all." So I agree. I mean, that's something I'd push back pretty hard on. At the end of the day, you also have to weigh that against what would it take me to hire another guy to come finish, because that's ultimately what you're going to do if that guy doesn't finish. And so it's probably a compromise in there, but hopefully over time you weed those guys out and it happens less and less and less, but it'll never stop happening.
I agree. There will be first-time builders who really want to jump into this niche, in this industry. They like building. What would you advise to be their first 3 steps? Let's say like 6 months plan, like what they can do to...
Well, I'm assuming that they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So you have to pick what you're going to build. I personally don't think that you can be really good at everything. You custom homes, spec homes, renovations, and even each one of those areas has like subgroups.
Multifamily, if you can.
Yeah, I mean...
it's even more complicated.
Yeah, I would say that I wouldn't move directly into multifamily unless you already had that connection. If you have a connection and you have the experience, go do that. Multifamily is its own niche, but it's like under renovations, you've got flips and you have home renovations. If I renovate for you, which I rarely do, but if I do it, you can't live in the house. I talk to people all the time. They have clients living in the house that they're renovating. I'm like, no, absolutely not. But like there's different rules, so you have to figure out where you can be. I would tell you that any market always has room for another good contractor.
So first choose the what you want to do.
Find that niche,
Yes.
And then find a deal.
Find the client.
Yeah, because until you have the niche and the deal, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. If you don't have experience, I mean, I hate to tell them this, but I think you should go get a job with somebody that's doing what you think you want to do. There's general contractors hiring all over the place.
Project manager, foreman.
Superintendent. If you have to become a sales guy for a roofing company, whatever you got to do to touch construction, like get anywhere you can in the construction business and find out really quickly, do I like this? Do I not? The sub trades are different because you're going to be like micro focused. A general contractor, there are a lot of places, and maybe you got to take a job for less money than you want. Think about the experience. What people pay to go to college, they don't get paid to go to college, right? So think about that education you need. Is there anything complicated about building a house? No. If you watch enough YouTube videos, you can probably teach yourself how to do it. That's not where the difficulty comes in. It's managing those expectations. It's plugging in and making sure the details are correct and understanding why an 8-inch duct coming to a room is different than a 6-inch duct, and actually being able to notice that and say, hey, are we sure we're good? Those are the things that you don't learn in those YouTube videos, and you don't learn anywhere other than going and doing it and having a hot room.
Yeah, I totally agree. Where is American residential building industry headed in 5 years? What should a 2028 builder know now? Like, what is your feeling?
That's a great question.
Will AI eat our jobs?
Eventually, I think eventually will. I think it's going to take longer. A lot of people said, "Hey, you go into the trades," and this is probably this could be its own separate podcast at some point. But I'm very interested in AI and automation, and I did listen to an Elon interview where they were basically saying all the trades are safe, and he says they're not safe. He said my Optimus robot can already, is as good as any electrician or any plumber. He says what's going to be the problem in a few years, that same robot's going to be better than 5 of them. No mistakes, no breaks. It just works. So he had mentioned the dexterity thing, but he basically how was he was basically describing it. He said the biggest problem, he goes, when we started teaching cars to drive, we wrote an algorithm and they got into some wrecks. But every time they wrecked, we took all that data, and that particular wreck would never happen again. He goes, you just have to have enough wrecks. He says, so a plumbing robot will be, it'll see a condition that there's no algorithm for, and we're going to need a live human plumber to log in and
with
look
a camera on the head,
and say, okay, here's what you do, the dissimilarment, blah blah blah, do that, and then but once that's been solved, that the network of robots will never need to ask that question again. He goes, so eventually we're going to phase it out. I believe that's probably going to happen in my lifetime. I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen in 5 years. I think in 5 years, I don't know that AI is going to do a ton. What I'm hoping AI helps with is on the production side and the manufacturing. So our material costs can come back down, because if we don't have these guys, all these men working in the construction business, where are they going to work? If they're not working, what are they going to do?
Have you seen these robots drawing chalk lines on the slab, like running and just like transferring the drawings from digital file to the slab?
I haven't seen those, but I've seen the warehouses where you can walk in and they 3D render your whole house for you. Yeah,
it's more like a projector, like
I mean, see, I don't know how helpful that stuff. I mean, for certain things, I think it's helpful. At the end of the day, somehow, some way, you've got to get the concrete poured in the right form to make it work, right? Can you get a robot to do it eventually? Probably. Will that happen? Probably. I mean, if the robots are 90% there, how long until they're 100% there? You know, it's coming. It's all going to happen. But as a contractor, what am I going to do? I'm going to start buying robots. I mean,
I personally wouldn't believe that like in next 25 years, someone could replace foundation guys like pouring concrete in 4 a.m. in the morning, like all this.
I think that's one of the easier ones to do.
Really?
Yeah, because the piece of equipment that digs the grade beams. I mean, we've got tractors now that they can run on a robot that can plow fields. We've got bulldozers and things that they hit the grades because of GPS and all that stuff. That it's automatically grades things to the right grade. I think digging the grade beams is going to be easy. Tying the rebar is, you know, if there's a dexterity issue, but they don't even need that. I mean, there's tools that they can reach in and put at the connection that does the tying. I just think there's got to be the want and need to do it, but I don't know that brings down the price of a house. I bet these robots are $20,000, $30,000.
Yeah.
So,
that's still a big issue.
And construction work, whether you're a robot or a human, is still hard on the system, right? And so I don't know how long one of those robots holds up, but I hate to say it, I think it happens in my lifetime. I don't know if I'm still a builder when that happens, but I do think it happens. Yeah.
Okay, rapid fire questions. Most overrated upgrade in a luxury home.
So the answer I want to give you isn't a rapid fire. It depends on the client and what they want, because I think people.
But you see, like people installing this or like they asking about this and they are not using this after that.
Like home theater.
Home theater.
Yeah, the big fancy ones. They never use them.
The best money homeowner can spend before construction event starts.
High quality designer and good plans. By far.
People don't realize that design stage can save huge amount of money.
Well, it not only does it save money, but now you have somebody. So I build 4 or 5 houses a year. Some of these designers design 100 houses a year and been doing it for 20 years. That's what I love about being in the room in those design meetings, because we all think we have a great idea because I've built cool stuff. But the designer's like, no, you don't want to do that here, because the way that this interacts with that and this volume ties into this next space, you can't see through. And I can think 3-dimensionally, but the way they flow through it differently, and like there's value there. There's absolute value there. And you know, early in my career, I was probably one of the guys that wanted to get plans from Pakistan. But I've learned very quickly that a good professional saves you money and lets you end up with a product you're happy with. That's the most important thing.
You get what you pay for usually.
Yep.
One tool, or product or material you'd never build without, like
a product I would never build without.
What tool, or maybe material?
Concrete. I don't see a time when you're going to convince me that a concrete foundation won't matter. I know there's places in the world where they actually do dirt houses, but I don't see that product ever going away.
Good. Where people can watch get more information about the company and watch the results of your work?
Yeah, I mean, we're on social media. We have a website. It's Cleo Builders, CLEO Builders.com.
We'll put it there,
Yeah. And so there's, and then if you just look up Cleo Builders on all the social media, I think we're on Instagram and Facebook. I think we've got some things on YouTube. Cameron has, I think all the sites are Cleo Builders, and so if you go look there, you'll find something somewhere on us. They don't care. They want to know we're going to do a good job. It's did you ever watch what was the show? Was it Tommy Boy? and I think that his dad said, I can get a good look at a T-bone by looking up a cow's ass, but I'd rather take the butcher's word for it. I think that a lot of our clients, they want to find a butcher they trust or a contractor they trust, and I think once they've done that, they're more of a tell me when it's done. Are we on budget? Are we on time? Tell me when I can move in. And they have so many other things they're worried about, and so that's what I like about it. And I think on smaller houses, people are stretching, and it's such a bigger stress. Like when $4 million house, you're making good money, right? You're making a good living there, and I think life just maybe hits you a little different. And I don't know the exact right way to say it, but I don't see as much stress in our clients as I would have on smaller stuff. So but no. Anybody wants to chat with Cleo Builders, I can tell you, you can probably tell from the podcast, I love to talk and chat and share information. I tell people all the time, even if I turn them down on a job, I said, listen, if you're down to a couple of contractors and you're trying to decide and you have some questions, call me. I'll give you my advice. I don't know what it's worth, but I've been doing it for a long time, and I would tell you what I'll do in that situation.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Very interesting conversation.
Yeah, no problem.
You're very honest with your answers. And guys, if you like these episodes, please ask questions. And if you want to connect with Cleo Builders, we'll also attach information how you can do it. And suggest us next episode, next topics, and we will be recording this podcast for first-time builders and everyone who want to build a house.
Love it.
That's a mission. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.